This is the VOA Special English Education Report. Today we answer a question from a listener in Brazil who wants to know about the United States Military Academy at West Point. West Point is a college for future Army officers. It has more than 4,000 students. The students are called cadets. The school is located about 80 kilometers north of New York City. West Point is the oldest continuously occupied military post in the United States. General George Washington built a fort there during the Revolutionary War. The aim was to protect the Hudson River from the British soldiers. He moved his headquarters to West Point in 1779 in the middle of the war. In 1802, President Thomas Jefferson signed legislation to establish the Military Academy at West Point. The education centered on civil engineering. West Point graduates designed many roads, bridges, harbors, and railways for the young nation. Today, math and science are still a large part of the education, but cadets can choose from almost 50 areas of study. If cadets major in the humanities, they must also take many classes in engineering. Not all the young men and women at West Point are American. This year, 58 are from other countries. As many as 60 cadets can be international students. International students are nominated by their governments. They must satisfy physical and educational requirements. They must also do well on the test of English as a foreign language. After graduation, they return home to serve in their nation's armed forces. Other services besides the Army also accept foreign students at their academies. Major Joe Sowers, a West Point public affairs officer, says information about the military academy is available through American embassies. He says the presence of international students at West Point serves a purpose for the Army. Major Sowers says cultural understanding is important for a modern-day officer. He says the American cadets begin the process of understanding that the world is bigger than their hometown and West Point and the United States of America. He says it is important for the cadets to establish relationships with those who come from different backgrounds. And that's the VOA Special English Education Report. You can learn more about higher education in the United States from our Foreign Student series at VOA Special English.
This is the VOA Special English Education Report. The Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in the American state of South Dakota is home to the Oglala Sioux tribe. It's also where Nikki Olette is in her first year as the journalism teacher at Little Wound High School. Miss Oglette teaches the 12 students on the school newspaper, The Mustang News. She helps them choose story ideas if they need help. She says, sometimes if we're getting stuck, I'll kind of guide them along. But especially lately, they've been the one picking the articles. One student wanted to write her own column, comparing the weather to different parts of her own life. Another student wanted to start writing some song reviews. So now every 2 weeks, she picks out a couple of songs and writes a review about them. The reporters also cover news like a recent flood at the school caused by a broken water pipe. Yet the real story here is that Nikki Ouellette is the school's first journalism teacher in years. The Mustang News had stopped publishing, but now, not only is it back, copies are included every other week in the Lakota Country Times, a local newspaper. This way, school news reaches parents and other people in the community. Other student newspapers have been incorporated into Native American papers, but not many. The publisher of the Lakota Country Times, Connie Smith, says the public has welcomed the idea. She says, "Everywhere I go, people are talking to me about how proud they are. The kids do the news. They do the interviews. They take the pictures." Sometimes a teacher may have something that goes in, but mostly it's the students. Connie Smith says the quality is as good as some of the stories that are written by community members for the Lakota Country Times. The idea inspired 2 other schools on the Pine Ridge Reservation to publish their own papers. They take turns being included in the Times. Brooke Chase alone works on the Mustang News at Little Wound High School. She says her favorite story so far has been covering the history of the annual Bigfoot ride. This is a 2-week trail ride from the Standing Rock Reservation to Wounded Knee. Wounded Knee was where government soldiers killed more than 200 Sioux in 1890. The Army called it a battle. Indians called it a massacre. Brooke has a personal connection to the story she wrote. Her grandfather, Percy White Plume, helped start the Bigfoot ride and one of the original riders, she says. She went to his house and interviewed him about his experience. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. For more ways to learn American English and stay informed every day, go to voaspecialenglish.com from your computer or
This is the
mobile
VOA
device.
Special English Education Report. 9 years ago, Maine became the first American state to provide laptop computers to all 7th and 8th graders in public schools. The northeastern state has since expanded that program to about half of its high schools. Now, one school system in Maine has launched a project to provide tablet computers, the Apple iPad, to all kindergartners. Some people have criticized the project as a waste of money, but school officials expect it to increase learning. Lori Gerard teaches 5- and 6-year-olds at Sherwood Heights Elementary School in Auburn, Maine. Before the students collect their iPad, they say a rhyme to remind them how to be careful with it. Fingers on the bottom, thumbs on top. That way my iPad won't drop. Ms. Gerard plans to use different applications to help her create a learning plan for each student. The iPads have been in her classroom since the school year began in September. The principal of the school, Laura Shaw, says the iPads quickly let children know if they answer questions correctly. When you have 18 kids in the classroom and you see 10 kids hands raised up, the teacher does her best to get around. But sometimes, with the iPads and certain apps, the kids get immediate feedback. Almost 300 kindergartners in Auburn are using iPads this year. Project coordinator Mike Muir says he believes the computers can help students improve in reading and math. Less than 2/3 of the third graders in the school system are at what are known as benchmark levels. Mr. Muir says one of our literacy interventionists was working with several of her students and having a hard time with helping them be successful. She finally pulled out her own personal iPad and had them work on some apps for letter recognition and letter formation, and they met the benchmark very quickly. School districts in other states, including South Carolina, Tennessee, and Illinois, are also using iPads. The project in Maine costs $200,000. Most of that money is from the state and the federal government. Not everyone supports the project. Elliot Soloway is a computer science professor at the University of Michigan. It's ridiculous, he says, and not because of the iPads, but because of the amount of money. Is the iPad an effective learning tool? Educators in Maine plan to give a report at the end of the school year. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. This is the VOA Special English Education Report. About 1/5 of Americans aged 6 to 19 are considered overweight. To reduce that number, some schools are teaching children to make better food choices. The E.W. Stokes Public Charter School in Washington has started to include food topics in its third grade math and English programs. The school formed a partnership with Seedling Projects, an environmental group in San Francisco, California. Peter Nally is a curriculum director for a program called Farm to Desk. He says they are doing this in part to address the issue of childhood obesity. He says one of the main components of our program is our belief that if kids are exposed to positive and healthy messaging about food throughout the instructional day, that has the most potential to impact long-term change. Teacher Hannah Chen recently used food examples to teach 8 and 9-year-olds in a math class how to make combinations. For example, they figured out the different combinations that could be made with a pizza and 2 toppings. School chef Makisha Day says the school buys most of its food from local farms. But the school has a garden for the students to grow some of the vegetables themselves. The children, they love it, she says. Teacher Hannah Chen agrees. She says, "We have a salad bar at the school, and now the kids love the salad bar. They love the fruits and vegetables. So I think it is making a big difference in their lives." She says the third graders have also learned to read the sugar and fat content listed on food packages. She says the E.W. Stokes Public Charter School in Washington plans to expand the Farm to Desk program to other grades next year. Charter schools get public money but do not have to follow the same rules as traditional public schools. Many charter schools have specialized areas of study, like Environmental Charter High School near Los Angeles. Students learn the importance of protecting the environment. Rigo Estrada says he used to be the kind of person who threw trash on the street. But now He has done things like clean up beaches and teach elementary school students about the importance of water conservation. He says he now knows that going green actually is a really serious topic. Students learn from teachers and outside experts, like the owner of an environmentally friendly business. They also learn how to prepare a business plan that they can use to help pay for college. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. This is the VOA Special English Education Report. A few years ago, a university researcher was having problems with an experiment that involved medical imaging. His advisor and his friends had no solutions. The researcher was Iyad Madish at Harvard in Massachusetts. I was so frustrated, he says. His solution was to start a scientific network for researchers. It lets them connect with each other and share information about their research and their publications. ResearchGate is similar to another social network developed at Harvard, Facebook. But Mr. Madish says the purpose of his site is to make scientists more productive. He says his goal is to win a Nobel Prize. If we think that ResearchGate will accelerate research in all the different fields, it will change the speed of science significantly in the future. So I definitely do believe that ResearchGate could win the Nobel Prize for that one day. Mr. Madish received the support of investors, including a former Facebook executive and the same investment group that put money into Twitter. So far, 900,000 people have signed up as members of ResearchGate. One of those users is Caroline Moore Cokeless at Boston University. Her profile page shows her picture and her specialty, neuroscience. It also lists her doctoral advisor and the work she has published. She can follow other researchers and click on to group pages that discuss different subjects. She also uses Facebook, but says people almost never discuss science there. She says on ResearchGate, she can ask questions and learn about what other researchers are working on before they publish their results. She can also learn about recently published science. She says, the scientific literature is so huge at this point that it's really impossible to get through everything in your topic area. People really rely on hearing it from other people. But not every user is pleased with ResearchGate. Kim Bertrand at the Harvard School of Public Health is an epidemiologist, someone who studies the spread and control of diseases. Ms. Bertrand says she finds more value in her own offline network of researchers and advisors than in this online network. She says, sometimes I get these emails that are like, "Dear Sirs, I'm writing a dissertation on public health. Any suggestions? Please advise." I don't need that. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. To read and listen to more stories, go to voaspecialenglish.com. This is the VOA Special English Education Report. Question: which program is in Guinness World Records as the world's longest-running TV quiz show? Answer: it's Academic, a Saturday morning program for high school students. The show has aired in the Washington area for 50 years. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton competed on it when she was a teenager. Teams from local schools answer questions on subjects like history, literature, math, science, religion, politics, and sports. Susan Altman is the producer of It's Academic. She says, "It's a great age group to work with. They're fun, they're enthusiastic, they say funny things without even meaning to half the time." Ms. Altman's mother, Sophie, was a TV producer in the 1950s. She started It's Academic after local school officials asked her to create a program that showed outstanding students. Susan Altman says, "At that time, 1961, the United States was going through a lot of upheaval with school integration, and they wanted things to help out, to make the schools look good, and to show that integration could work and work well. So this is what she came up with." The show's host, Mac McGarry, says, "When we first started, the young people from various countries were not evident so much. Now, each program presents young people from all over the world, at least descendants from people all over the world." Mac McGarry is 84 and has hosted It's Academic since the beginning. He says, "Every time I look up, I see people who are just 17 years old, and somehow I think, well, I must not be growing older at all." Their enthusiasm is contagious, no question about it. More than 20,000 students have appeared on the show. Mac McGarry has asked more than 200,000 questions and gotten more than a few funny answers. We had a question one time, "Who defeated Napoleon at Waterloo?" And the young fellow answered, "Duke Ellington." Another time, we had a question of, "Who, along with Frederick Engels, wrote the Communist Manifesto?" Groucho Marx. The correct answers, of course, are the Duke of Wellington and Karl Marx. Rockville High School in Maryland has won the championship on the show several times. Kelly Reeder led the team last year. "My friends who are on It's Academic think it's cool that I'm the captain of the A team, but my friends who are not on It's Academic think it's kind of funny." You can find a link to a video about It's Academic at voaspecialenglish.com. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. Welcome to the Education Report in Special English. Millions of students have been taught a formula that has nothing to do with chemistry or mathematics. The formula is for writing a 5-paragraph essay. First, write an introductory paragraph to state the argument. Then, add 3 paragraphs of evidence. Finally, write a conclusion. Linda Bergman is director of the Writing Lab at Purdue University in Indiana. Her job is to help students, including international students, improve their writing. Professor Bergman has worked with many students who learned this traditional 5-paragraph formula. She says international students sometimes have difficulty with this formula if they learned a different writing structure. But just knowing how to write a 5-paragraph essay is not going to be enough for a college student who has to write a longer academic paper. As Professor Bergman notes, the formula is too simple to deal with subjects that require deeper thought and investigation. Karen Goshik works for the Institute for Writing and Rhetoric at Dartmouth College in New Hampshire. The Institute has a big library of online writing materials on its website. So, what are the qualities that make up good writing? Karen Goshik says there are no simple answers, except maybe for one. That is, there is no formula that students can follow to guarantee a well-written paper. In some cultures, students organize their paragraphs to build toward the main idea at the end of the paper. American college students are usually expected to state their thesis at the beginning of their paper. And American professors generally want students to use short sentences. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal.